Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Tarun's Thoughts. My name's Tarun Shetty. This is my bedroom. Of course, I'm Tarun Shetty. I mean, this is my YouTube channel, right? Hey, hope everyone had a good weekend. I kind of took a break from making these videos for a few days because I was just, honestly, I was like, what's the point of this? I mean, why am I even doing this? So like 6 people can watch it and, leave comments, but I had this point of like equanimity a few days ago. Give me a break. This is the pandemic. I mean, I can say whatever I want, right? And I was like, well, if all my life is writing books and making my short videos and my comedy things, and that's all it is, that's pretty good. I mean, I'm pretty lucky. So, and I actually do like making these videos. It's just, sometimes I have to motivate myself to sit on my bed, which I normally do anyway, so why not record it? But I wanted to talk about South Asians in comedy, because obviously I'm South Asian, and I think I have a pretty good perspective, and I'm not an expert on it now, but I mean, I started doing comedy in '97, and when I started doing it, I was just like, I didn't really think about being Indian or South Asian. I still don't. And I started Googling, like, who are the other Indians in comedy. Swear to God, the only people that were around were this guy named Jerry Bednoff from 40-Year-Old Virgin, that old guy. I guess he does stand-up. Russell Peters in Canada, and he didn't blow up yet, but I just found, like, his website. Some other dude, like, named Jazzman or something in Canada. That was it. Nobody else, right? And I was like, well, this is absolutely crazy that I'm even doing this because there's no South Asians to really pull me up. But that was the journey, and I started doing comedy, and every time I did comedy in New York, they'd always be like, talk about your family, because that was like the whole thing about comedy back then. Like Ray Romano was doing sitcoms, and the whole thing about comedy is always changing, and all the bookers were like, you got to talk about your family and your Indian background and bullshit, So that was that. And then Russell Peters' video broke through, I don't know when I was in New York for sure. And all of a sudden he was like the shit, like shit in a good way. Like he was like the man in comedy for Indians. And I remember doing a show, and they would have like these all Asian Indian shows, and the crowds were just phenomenal. Like I wasn't even that strong as a comedian, and they were just so amazing because they just were so happy to see an Indian doing comedy. And links back to Russell Peters. I remember because I did a show at New York Comedy Club, and he was there like a week after me, and like he just sold it out completely. Like they were just so happy to see him, and he was like a celebrity. I heard like he went from making $300 a week to like a couple $100,000 a show. It was insane. So that took off, and all of a sudden, people wanted Indian comedians. And because I was doing it for like 4 or 5 years at that point, I was doing like corporate shows. People were flying me out to do weddings, and it was just a surreal point of my life. And another guy I saw coming up, I should have mentioned this, was Aziz Ansari. I went to NYU, and I used to see Aziz. I used to see him around campus, but then I'd see him at the comic strip, this comedy club in New York City. And this is how like myopic these bookers were. Like, this is in my novella, by the way. The booker actually told me, because they passed Aziz a week before I did, and he goes, we've already passed an Indian guy, so we can't pass 2 Indian guys. But that's what it was like being an Indian comedian back in the day, because like it was almost like every club were like zookeepers. They had like a certain type of each person, like an Indian guy, a Jewish guy, a fat guy. So it was interesting, and I never really wanted to be like the Indian comedian. I just wanted to work in comedy. Like I really loved Adam Sandler, and I'm from New Hampshire, and I just wanted to make a niche for myself somewhere. I still do. Like that's really what I always desired. And then as the years progressed, there were just more South Asians in comedy. Like I saw it happen. Like it was just, I came out to LA, and I wasn't friends with his son, but like I definitely, I mean, I'm friends with him, but I'm not like super tight with him. Like I went to New York and I was walking by the Comedy Cellar and I talked to him for a bit. Like I saw his rise, and this guy named Hari Konabolu who made the Simpsons thing. He's the guy who got all that flack because he made that documentary about the Simpsons about how evil Apu was. I remember being in New York and he was at Columbia or something, and he came up to me at a coffee shop and he was like, "Dude, I want to do stand-up comedy. Can you give me some advice?" So like I saw all these guys like in their, I guess, neophyte phases of their career when they were coming up, and that was really interesting. And now it's like, dude, there's like thousands of South Asian comedians, like all over the world. Like it's funny because like I'm not even part of any of their groups. Like I always wonder like how they see me, but I think I give off this like I don't care vibe, so they don't really reach out to me. Actually, they used to, a lot of these Indian shows used to reach out to me because I think I was like the only guy, and now that there's so many comedians, I took it all for granted. First of all, like when I was getting paid like a couple thousand to like fly out to all these shows, I was like, oh, this is gonna go on forever. And then as the competition increased, there was just more options to choose from. I mean, luckily, like I always work really clean and like I can really adapt to any show. I mean, by the way, there's so many clips of me online of me bombing in front of South Asian audiences because a lot of times they don't even know what comedy is. So anyways, in LA especially, the whole diversity thing, you just saw a lot of people jumping into the comedy scene. There's a whole thing right now like We Are All Not the Same or something, but run by these girls. And actually I've met a few of them, Zara or something. She's super nice and she's funny too. And I feel like now people, there's almost too many Indian comedians, because a lot of people I notice, I mean, I'm really old school. I'm all about the craft of comedy. Like I feel like if you don't have like a good joke behind your act or jokes behind your act, then why am I watching this? Like it's not just you talking so we can hear you talk. I mean, in that case, do a vlog or something, but like people do that on stand-up and that drives me crazy. And I see a lot of Indians who just ignore that for some reason. Like they're like, oh, I'm Indian, I can talk about whatever the hell, and this is comedy. So I do feel like the craft of it is sometimes being overlooked. But with that being said, there's a lot of really strong comedians, Indian comedians. This guy who I just connected with on who I've seen in person, I just connected with on Instagram, named Richard Savarte, Savarte. He's super funny, really funny guy. And I always message people when I think they're really funny, and I was like, dude, I think you're doing some really great stuff. And I was like, just keep doing it. So I try to be positive. I try to give back, because I know when I was coming up, nobody helped. Like, again, Russell did my movie in Bobby Khan, right? So I am indebted to him to that. But aside from that, like nobody, like there's no Indian comedians like to pull you up. Like I know like a lot of the Southern comedians do that. They pull each other up and stuff. But like when I was coming up, it was just me, and my friends are guys, normal dudes who are comedians, like Adam Hunter, like Darren Carter, Elliot Chang. Like these are like my best friends in comedy, and they're just like normal comedians. And I kind of like it like that. I never wanted to pigeonhole myself as just one type of comic where I can only do ethnic shows. I think that's the worst thing to do. I think comedy is this effusive thing that's always changing. It's malleable, and you can go in different ways and directions, and that's what I've tried to do. So I've tried to make content, direct, make my own stuff, do stand-up, write my books. I like it like that, and that's what makes me happy. But I definitely think we're in the South Asians. Oh, by the way, and there's a whole thing going on right now in India, which is huge. Like those guys are just blowing up YouTube. Like there are these comedians out there. It's in Hindi, and I watch some of them, and let's being honest, like some of them are not that strong. But India is just, they're almost in the phase that I was in New York years ago. Indians are just so happy to see comedians on stage, and they're getting like 7 million, 8 million hits, for a stand-up thing, and I'm watching it. It's in Hindi, and they're translated into English as well. And I'm like, there's no jokes here, just some guy talking on stage, and people are loving it. So I mean, who am I to say anything? I mean, comedy's subjective. So I think South Asians are in a good place comedy-wise. I mean, a lot of guys have broken through. You know, Russell, Aziz Ansari, stand-up wise, Hassan Minaj, and I'm glad that I was actually part of the forefront. I got to see it all, even though I wasn't like a huge name at all. I got to see everything first-hand perspective, and I really appreciate that. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. You know, go check out, there's always like a Desi show or something everywhere. Pretty much, there's always like some indie New York Indian show or LA, and I'm not part of that world, but I'm sure you can find it. So subscribe if you like this channel, and I'll see you guys soon. Take care.